Mr. Nameco right there. I am Dustin, already heading into week 6 of the NFL season. These are our positional rankings. Feel free to leave a comment, give us a thumbs up. We like the thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel.
And remember, these are standard rankings, but since it is already week 6, that means we got to even talk about fantasy basketball.
Yes.
So if you don't play fantasy basketball, it's a lot of fun. I absolutely love fantasy basketball. We got all of our videos up, so go ahead, check all those out, and give us thumbs up on those as well.
Hey.
Thumbs up. It's the thumbs up show.
Let's talk about those quarterbacks. Mr. Russell Wilson. I know if you drafted him, you used a decent draft pick, especially, compared to where other quarterbacks were going, and he didn't really help you out much, but he looked good, even with the banged up, ankle and knee going the game before the bye. He's had 2 weeks to recover. Going up against Atlanta, I really like Russell Wilson this week. He's going to make you happy you own him.
And on the flip side of that, talking about probably the early MVP, Matt Ryan. Guy's been playing great, but last week was the real test, right? He was playing Denver, so let's see what he does. Let's see how he does. Is he really playing that great? And he threw for 267 and 1 passing touchdown. So I see people seeing the Seattle matchup now and being nervous. I think Seattle's actually a worse defense than Denver, so I see similar numbers to this. Plus, they barely missed 2 long bombs to Julio, so he could have put up huge numbers again. I think Matt Ryan is still a solid play this week.
A lot of fun games this week. I'm excited about some of these matchups. Let's talk about those running backs. Another guy that you're drafted and you weren't very happy, and you might be happy after this week, Mr. Jamal Charles. You've waited.
About time.
You've waited patiently. I think this seems to be what their plan was all along. Basically, hold him through the bye. Don't do anything that's going to jeopardize the rest of his season. Make sure he's 100% healthy. There was a report today that said he was 110% healthy, which isn't actually possible. But with a matchup against Oakland, you got to think he's got a good chance.
You're one of those guys that hates that, don't you?
There's no such thing.
All right, I'm going to talk about Ryan Matthews of the Philadelphia Eagles playing Washington. And while the Redskins defense isn't a defense you're scared about, they've actually been 4th against running backs in terms of fantasy. So that is a little bit scary, but you still like the volume that Matthews has been getting. True, he did have that fumble that cost him the game, so keep an eye on that. But I think he's going to still be a high volume play this week.
All right, moving into our second 20 of running backs. Tevin Coleman's a guy I want to talk about. I own him in a league. It seems like I guess wrong with him every week, but but at this point we got to start trusting him. It's tough. I mean, last week it was the sickle cell, and then he blows up, and then this week, he's at Seattle, but he can do it through the air. He can do it on the ground. If you take away his one bad week, week 4, he's a top probably 5 running back. I mean, if everyone drops their lowest week, I mean, he's been amazing. I'm trusting him. He's at least in your flex spot.
All right, and a guy that I think is going to be a great flex, I'm talking about Lacy and Starks, because I don't necessarily think Lacy's going to play. Everyone saw him. He had all the ice on his ankle. He's not practicing early in the week, so if reports come out that Lacy's playing, we might move him up a little bit, or if he isn't playing, then we're going to probably move Starks up possibly a little bit, so I think Starks could be a decent flex play.
Oh, and Lacy owners are getting all excited watching him.
He was looking good.
Running with authority. Oh, he looks like a offensive lineman running with the ball, but he was plowing over people. Let's take a look at wide receivers. I want to talk about a guy, Kelvin Benjamin. After his hot start, people were like, all right, here we go. Got me a top 5 receiver. Then in week 3 against Minnesota was pretty much a dud. And then he's had 2 okay games since then. So he's really kind of trailed off, but you gotta get excited about him going up against the Saints this week. If you own him, you're starting him, you're excited about it.
All right, first receiver I want to talk about is one of my personal favorites, and that's Edelman for the New England Patriots. But again, this is standard ranking, so we have him a little bit lower than you would maybe think if you're playing in PPR, because he does get a decent amount of catches, but in standard leagues, he hasn't gotten over 8 points yet. So that's obviously a little bit scary, but with the return of Tom Brady, it was clear in his first game back. Obviously, he was hitting Bennett for all these touchdowns, but Tom Brady loves him some Edelman. I see Edelman getting a ton of targets, moving the chains, and I think he breaks 100 yards this week.
All right, next guy I'm talking about is Mr. Will Fuller, one of the most exciting rookies so far this year. Last week, yes, 1 catch for 4 yards, but he was playing Minnesota. Going back to
that's my boys.
Kelvin Benjamin, his terrible week 3 that was against Minnesota.
They're my boys.
Minnesota's defense is ridiculous. You know whose defense isn't ridiculous? The Colts defense. I mean, they're okay, but you can definitely throw on them. Fuller is always just one play away from a big week. I like his chances of bouncing back with a solid week, potentially a long touchdown.
All right, I wanted to highlight Tyler Lockett, and he's probably been dropped in a ton of leagues, and rightfully so. He has not been good. The bye week came, they're probably like, I don't want him anymore. Tell you what, if you got a terrible guy at the end of your bench that you're never gonna start, your third tight end or something ridiculous like that, just go ahead, go to the wire, pick up Lockett. Dustin and I were talking, he still has the talent, and this could be the game that he breaks out.
Take a look at those tight ends, and you look at the top of this list. You got Olsen, you got Gronk. I want to talk about Gronk. He looked great last week. He looked like the Gronk that we all have come to love. The only way you're not starting Gronk is if you own Olsen. He's playing. We wanted to put Gronk at 1, but with Olsen with that matchup,
Dustin would start Gronk over Olsen. You would.
Maybe.
I know you would.
Maybe in a standard league.
I know
the touchdown potential.
I know you would. You love Gronk. All right, I'm going to talk about another guy that Dustin loves. That's why we had this.
Yeah.
Either way, I have to talk him down sometimes. All right, the guy I'm going to talk about is James, tight end for Pittsburgh Steelers, another guy that Dustin fantasizes about and loves.
I don't know if I fantasize.
You're kind of weird. So, the thing that I love about him is standard league, right? That's how these rankings are going. 3 touchdowns he's already had this year, and I can see him being the type of guy that gets double-digit touchdowns, not a ton of yards. You know, think of what Allen did a couple years ago, Vernon Davis back in the day. Guy that gets 10 to 13 touchdowns. That's realistic for James at this point. Not a huge yardage, but he's going to be a touchdown threat every week.
Jesse James. Love him. I love that he's working out.
No, it was a good call by you.
We liked him before it was cool to like him.
Well, that is true.
All right, let's move on to defense. Lots of interesting options this week, especially if you like to stream. There's some decent options out there. Steelers, they were picked up in a lot of leagues last week. They had a decent matchup last week. I got a nice matchup this week again. Going up against Miami and that terrible offensive line. Steelers have 7 sacks in the last 2 weeks. I expect them to at least get a few more this week. Even if Arian Foster comes back, I still think Pittsburgh has success.
All right, since I can't talk about the Vikings, my boys, because they're on a bye, I absolutely love the Vikings. But I'm going to talk about Seattle, and here's why. They got dropped in a ton of leagues, and I saw they get dropped, and then a bunch of people picked them up, and like, doesn't matter, they'll play Atlanta, I think they'll do okay, it's the Seahawks. But we ranked them a lot lower than a lot of other places, and going forward, I really want you to know, like, out of their next 4 out of the next 5 games, Atlanta, Arizona, New Orleans, New England, their schedule is brutal. So if you picked them up thinking you got a steal, it's going to be tough to start them week in and week out for the coming weeks, including this week against Atlanta. That's putting up a ton of points every week, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough schedule for them.
Yeah.
That's really tough. So those are our rankings. Leave comments. Give us a thumbs up. Get into our forums if you got any questions. Good luck this week. Do some trades. It's a good trading week.
It is a good week. This is coming into week 6, perfect trade.
Lots of teams down there, 1 and 4.
If you're at the top, 2 for 1s, get a stud. If you're at the bottom, 2 for 1s,
this
you
is
need
the
both
week
up your
where
roster.
everyone hates me because I'm sending like 50 trade offers out.
That is very true in all of our leagues.